All Hallows Eve is fast approaching, so I thought I'd make a video to embrace that. The Alien franchise has been a staple of the horror genre ever since the Xenomorph first graced us with its terror in Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien. And with it being a decade since the release of the game, I thought I'd make a retrospective analysis of Alien Isolation. But before we get into all that, make sure you like, comment, share and subscribe. Without further ado, let's go. The survival horror was developed by Creative Assembly and published by former hardware manufacturer Sega. Having sold an impressive amount with over 2 million copies in less than a year, they must have done something right when making this game. Alien Isolation embraces the more tense, horror aspects of the first installment of the franchise and is more reminiscent of that as a result, as opposed to the more action-orientated newer films. They were able to recreate it with a detailed and well-designed alien and world for the player to inhabit. It managed to make you feel immersed in the experience, at times to the point that it matched the eeriness of the film it was drawing inspiration from. You play as Amanda Ripley, daughter of Sigourney Weaver's character and the original protagonist of the Alien film series, Ellen Ripley. 15 years after the fear-inducing events of the first film, Ellen's ship, the Nostromo's flight recorder, was located. So, for the sake of closure, Amanda heads out there to find it and discover what happened to her mother. And thus, she finds herself in outer space where she experiences the same tragic events that meant her mother was never able to return to her. When it's eventually found, the recording of Ellen is voiced by the original actress as she's addressing her daughter. You can really hear all of the emotion in Ellen's voice. It's clear as day that Sigourney Weaver put her absolute all into this performance. And I'm grateful she did. Although the game takes a while to get going, it was all to build an atmosphere, and boy does it succeed in that. That is the reason that when it gets going, it gets going. The developers were able to convey the sense of a clever creature lurking around the ship, learning from the actions of the hunted. Essentially, there are a set number of actions the alien can take at the beginning. But as the player makes new, creative decisions about where to hide or how to fight back, once noticed by the alien, the Xenomorph takes that on board for the next hunt. It incrementally adds on to its actions because it's already capable of doing more thanks to the 36 branches to the behavior tree that was implemented by the developers. For example, when the player is caught hiding once under the table or in a locker, the alien will search the same sort of areas again to see if you're foolish enough to do the same thing twice. So you might have to control your breathing in tight spaces while being investigated. This makes it feel less like an AI you're trying to outsmart and more like an actual being. Therefore, it's rarely unfair when you've been caught because it conveys the actual feeling that the Xenomorph truly earned its kill. There are very few scripted moments when it comes to the alien's whereabouts and approach to attacking you. It's way more like Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 Remake than Nemesis from Resident Evil 3 Remake, and thankfully so. Doing away with those scripted cinematics work in its favour and help with the longevity of the game. That's why people are still talking about the AI in Alien Isolation to this day.
To this day!
The fact that they took a well-known IP that has been butchered in modern times and went against the grain in terms of what most AAA games were doing at the time is what made the game so unique and ahead of its time. The importance and significance of sound design in horror games is criminally overlooked. You look at clickers in The Last of Us, shooting off limbs in Dead Space, Mr. X's footsteps in Resident Evil 2 Remake, they are a cut above the rest. And Alien Isolation is no slouch in that department. The sound design is able to derive an emotional reaction from the player ranging from eeriness and disgust to fear and terror. Despite the clever ways the alien hunts you, the dynamic sound design allows you to figure out its location and where it's coming to pounce at you from so you know what to take as your next step. The Xenomorph can set traps and ambush you, so there's a lot more to look out for than your typical stalker in a game. There are signs as to when this is happening, such as fluids dripping from the vents. These tend to happen more often when the flamethrower is used because the alien wants to avoid your blaze and finds this to be the most effective way to do this. Despite getting access to a variety of weapons including a revolver, shotgun, bolt gun, flamethrower and stun baton, the ammunition was limited and thus a stealthy approach was obligatory, especially given that the alien itself cannot be defeated. The weaker human enemies that show were necessary in my opinion to showcase the sheer power and horror at play when the xenomorph is after you. However, I have to say the working Joes can feel a bit more of an annoyance than anything else, to be honest. There are some schematics that can be collected throughout the space station that can enable you to craft items that allow you to deal with the oncoming threat. EMP detonators, Molotov cocktails, noisemakers and pipe bombs can truly help you get out of a ditch if necessary. This illustrates the point that this is a cat and mouse game for the alien and you've just got to be as clever as Jerry is with Tom to make it out alive. While this is no surprise with it being an ongoing franchise, the design of the alien itself is terrifying as heck. The face, the mouths, the near 15-inch tail getting dragged around behind it makes you extremely wary, especially with it wagging around unpredictably and with it being sensitive to touch. While the motion tracker allows you to somewhat keep tabs on the alien's whereabouts, that can't help you if you get spotted. Not only can the xenomorph see, it can hear any odd sounds and is triggered by them, so it means you have to be quite tactical about what you do and how you do it. You can't go around firing a gun willy-nilly unless you're looking to get ravaged. So, you can use circuit boards to rewire mechanisms in the structure of the map to your advantage. You can rid yourself of the camera in the hallway that will bring you to the attention of enemies, or unlocking a shut door to progress to where you want to get to. These traits, as well as new tools unlocked throughout the experience, make it very Metroidvania-like in its design, due to some backtracking involved to get to new areas. A very common concept in survival horror experiences, as shown with Resident Evil for example. It allows the player to become complacent in areas already traversed, only to be hit with a new, unforeseen scare to knock you off balance. That can only work because of the sensational level design and layouts that make it feel like a bit of a puzzle to get through and navigate, especially with the xenomorph and androids on your case. While I wouldn't call it overly challenging by any means, it does slow you down, which increases the feeling of being trapped in close quarters with the alien. Due to the ever-present nature of the alien, it feels like I was crouching throughout the entire game. Maybe I took twice as long as I was supposed to finish it, but that only goes to show the amount of fear and trepidation the game instills in the player. The positive reception Alien Isolation received was fundamentally due to the highly advanced AI of the xenomorph being used to instill fear and unpredictability in the player, and rightly so. However, if the game was shorter, the breaks between the encounters with the xenomorph may have felt a bit more tolerable and can be played off as building anticipation, which is done very effectively in the film, but with the game having a runtime of just shy of 20 hours, unfortunately it slightly overstays its welcome and becomes a touch annoying, with you only wanting to get to the fun bits. Unfortunately, there were several points where I expected it to end, only for it to just keep going and going, so that ever so slightly diluted my experience with the game. Thanks so much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, comment your thoughts and subscribe for more retrospectives and video essays like this. See ya!